Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode number 18 here in the Happy Space Prison. I've been doing some work, working some things out with our water boiling system here, and it's a little bigger. I decided to go 5 steam turbines across, just because that way, when it's running 100% and all 5 steam turbines are active, we have a full line of water blowing out, because each steam turbine puts out 2 kilograms per second. So 5 of them completely fill a pipe if they're all running at the same time. It's a little bit of complication here, but let me show you the important parts. So I have the salt water going directly into our steam chamber, which means that it is being boiled by the crude oil. I changed the thermosensor. I actually looked at a post on Reddit. I think it was Tony Advanced to get a little bit of an idea of some of the tips. So he had an image up that showed a few things, and one of the big things was the idea to put the thermosensor in the oil, which I didn't think of. That means that what we're doing is we're heating the oil up. So I have it set to heat the oil up until the oil gets to 200 degrees, which means basically the thermal aqua tuners will continue to run as long as this oil is we want it to be over 125 degrees. It'll keep going up to 200 degrees, which is fine. That means this will only shut off if we get too hot in here, which it shouldn't ever do. I also put in a sensor here just to make it so that if this system were to get backed up and the loop were to continue looping the same water, if it got too cold, that it would cause us to be cracking pipes. Well, in fact, I just put it at 50 degrees, but so we could go a little lower than that, but that's as low as I want it to go. So if it's colder than, if the water going through gets below 50 degrees, meaning it's looping and not being pulled out, it will stop cooling down the water. That way we don't end up cracking pipes inside. And so then what happens is the water comes down here. If it's cold, it gets pulled out. And it goes in, and I have it going and just filling up, starting here and going around and filling up down here. I still have some water in these from the old system, but you can kind of see how much water it's produced by looking over. It starts here and the buffer tanks get filled up. It's now working on this tank, and then it'll start here and go this way. I have automation so that the oxygen system will run full bore until this tank gets back to empty. If it fills up, that way we'll always have room for water to go in, basically. And then it also pulls water off of this line before it sends it. Well, it prioritizes this line before it sends the water down to this line, because I want to make sure that there's always water in these tanks, because these are the tanks that top off this line. So if the steam turbine is not producing 100%, so we have a full line going in to keep this line full, then we have water being fed in from these buffer tanks, which they've prioritized getting water from the steam turbines, but then we top them off with water from here, which means that it's kind of like pre-cooling the water a little bit, because this line is colder water. But that way we never end up where we don't have water going through the system, so that if we want the aqua tuners running, they can't run. And then there's automation here where if this tank gets to the high threshold, which is 75, it shuts off this liquid shutoff and doesn't turn it on again until it gets down to 5% in this tank, so that way we're not pumping water in and filling this tank up, making it so the steam turbines can't run. There's always going to be room in the buffer tanks for steam output. Last thing is the salt is picked up by this auto sweeper and sent through this conveyor loader, which goes through here, and it gets dropped off. The salt is coming out pretty cold, and that's because I set up another aqua tuner that is just a polluted water loop that goes through and cools down the steam turbines. So as you can see, those steam turbines are icy cold because they have their own independent cooling instead of being self-cooled. And that means that we can use that chill to cool down the salt. So any salt water we drop in would come out. I think with a little bit of tweaking, we could also run the polluted water through here and just get dirt out of it, because we just have to make sure we keep the pressure in the room above 2K, which we already do, because we only run these aqua tuners to heat up the steam if they're 2K. I could also connect this to make it so the steam turbines don't pull any steam out if it goes below 2K. That way we wouldn't have any off-gassing from polluted water, but I don't really have any polluted water I want to feed through here. I have a polluted water vent down here, which I'm going to be working on next, but I want to save that polluted water in case I want to use it for crops. I'm also going to use it for a little bit of cooling over here in a little bit, but I do need to set this up just so that it's being stored properly. That's going to be our next project. So this is, I'm going to call this done for now. I did do a stress test on it where I just let it run for a little while to see if anything happened, and it seemed to be working fine. So hopefully we have no trouble with it. I am going to set a sweep command just to clean up any of the excess stuff around it. I've already sealed this chamber and this chamber off. I'm going to leave these here just for now, just to make sure in case I need to go back in there to fix something I didn't think of. I didn't do it. So you can see here right now we have 4 steam turbines running. This one's not running, so we're only putting out 8 kilograms of water through this pipe. So that means water from here is being fed in, so that we're always putting in a full line into the buffer tanks, and then we're pulling it out. And then the only time that we're not pulling out of these buffer tanks at the same rate that we're putting it in is if this water gets too hot and it needs to go through a second loop. But it shouldn't ever do that because I'm running through 2 aqua tuners, which means I'm dropping 28 degrees. And the highest we're putting liquid in is at like 95 degrees. So since we're putting in 95 degree maximum, we're pulling out 28 degrees, it should always be below the 70, and it should never loop. But it will if it gets too hot, just to make sure that we have cold water coming out. So this water will always be under 70 degrees, which means that we'll be hitting our target for our electrolyzer. All things are working great. So the next thing I'm going to work on is just finishing up. I want to seal this up, and I've been working down here to clean out this room. I want to get this finished up so that I can start working on the carbon district down here, because our next big project is going to be closing this off and making a hot room down here. We're going to move all of our power distribution, all of our steel production in here, and we're going to set up cooling to keep the temperature in this room right where we want it, so that we have hot carbon dioxide in here. And then we're probably going to be just open up these gold volcanoes. I think that they're not enough heat to cause me any real trouble, and I'll just be able to cool them along with the rest of the system. We'll see. But first of all, we need to get this cleaned up, and we need to get this sealed up, so I'm going to work on that. So things have been running here, doing pretty well. Water's filling up in our system, and everything's being processed just fine. Everything's working great. While that was running and doing stuff, I worked on... Ooh, I have a big problem down here. Looks like I have some pressure breaking. Need to fix this really quickly. Let me just do that one. Let's cancel this dig. Looks like some pressure built up in here, and it caused a break in this layer that I was working on. I knew I should have left that as more than 1 layer thick. Fortunately, I have a section down here for where I was cleaning out ice, and so all of our water will drain down in here that is off of here. We'll have to clean that up, but I think I need to get, before they finish doing this, let's get a section here, and then I'm going to put some blocks underneath here and over here. Actually, no, over here we have a triple layer, so we can do this. We'll go like this. So we're going to put some blocks down here, that way we can get this some support underneath there, and then we'll fill out the airflow tiles. This is why I use airflow tiles when I'm trying to store liquids, because airflow tiles can't be broken by liquids. So let's stop this mopping for now, because I just want everything to drain off a little bit. I was trying to mop up down here, but it looks like we're getting this fixed, and then we'll move on with it. I did clean out this section of our ice biome that was sticking down in here. We'll have to get the gases out, and now the liquids that are spilling down here. And I also did a lot down here. I had a big mess down here, because as I was bringing ice from here out, Duplicants were bringing them through here, and the heat's just too hot in here, so the ice would melt in their hands. Water spilled down in, and this heat down here is too much, so I created some steam. All stuff I'm gonna have to fix later, but you know, it's a mess. But what are you gonna do? We'll get it all sorted later. Over here, I have everything kind of started for the first part of the carbon district that I want to work on. So we have mostly carbon dioxide in here. I still have to clean up a little bit of gases. We have some things in here that are off-gassing. So I'm going to do, let's see. We want sublimators, and let's just do all the organics. That'll be the easiest way to do this, and do a level 9. So now, just that bleach stone that's in there will get picked up and swept. I'll deal with the rest of that stuff in a little while, but I want to get that out of here because it's off-gassing and creating chlorine that I need to deal with, and I don't want that. The main thing I did is I closed off this section here. This is jutting out just because I'm going to be building a oil system for this oil reservoir here, and I didn't want to have space underneath it where the oil would collect. And then I built a row of tiles here. I like to make it flat against the neutronium that's sticking out so that I don't accidentally run a pipe and then run into neutronium. The map is plenty big that I don't need that little gap on the side that is around those. So I just fill it in with blocks. And then here, I set up a system to handle this cool slush geyser. So basically all this is doing is there is a airflow tile system around this at the top. This is pumping out whenever we get more than 100 kilograms in the top, and it's pumping polluted water up into this tank where it is getting stored. Because there is gas trapped here, this will constantly put out even though this water is compressing, and so we can store it infinitely here. And then that way this cool slush geyser can just run forever, and I have space here for 2 pumps that I can use to pump polluted water out wherever I need it to go. I want to seal this in, but I want to wait until I handle the chlorine, because right now I have chlorine mixed in there and a little bit of oxygen. I want to let that all kind of filter out, get just polluted oxygen in there, but I need to get rid of all of this nastiness first. So then I have like this going all the way up. I have a ladder here. This is where I'm going to be building our new power spine. So we're going to have basically, this is where we'll have power transformers. They'll go across to the map, and I think I'm going to try to use this coolant this polluted water is very cold. So I might use that originally just to cool down all of our power transformers in this side, just for a little while, and then I'll build some active cooling later. But might as well use that cold while it's here. The next thing I want to work on is our oil. So to harness the oil down here, I'm going to build a pretty simple thing I've done many times before. We're just going to be boxing it in with insulated tiles so that we can make sure that it is contained. The oil reservoir, when we put an oil well on it, is going to do a couple of things. So oil well will sit right on top of it. We feed water into the oil well, and the oil well, these can't be rotated, can they? Oops, that is the wrong button. No, they can only go one way. So the oil well, we feed water in, and we feed 1 kilogram per second of water in. We get 3,333.33 grams per second, so 3.3. So roughly, 3.3 times as much oil as we put in water. It also generates some heat, and a pretty decent amount of heat. And it also, it doesn't say on here because it only happens when you empty it, but it produces natural gas too. It is 33.3 grams per second. So much smaller compared to the crude oil, but we want to make an area here that is contained so we can pump in water, get gas, and crude oil back. So I just always do the same thing. It's pretty simple. We put a mesh tile underneath. I'm going to put a shift plate here because this is where the hot oil is going to be coming out. That helps to spread it around a little bit. Actually, I want to put this wall out one more. I don't like having insulated tiles next to the shift plate, so we're going to leave a little gap in there. And then we're going to put a roof over the top. And this can't be sealed off because we need to have duplicants come in to do some work for us. They have to go in to be able to release the pressure from the natural gas building up. So in order to do that, we need to set up a way for them to get in, and we're going to do it with a pretty simple liquid lock. So this is going to be dumping crude oil into the room. So we're gonna want a space for a pump, and then we're just going to put a 2-tall block there, and then we're going to put let me think exactly how I want to do this. I need space for the gas pump also. Each one of these it ends up being just a little bit different because we're looking for to squeeze everything in. We can put a gas pump above it on that side. The liquid pump we'll put in right here. And then, so that means if we're going to be doing a seal on this, we want to do... Let's put a mesh tile like that, and then like this. So as we get oil pumped in here, coming out of the crude oil, or the oil well, the crude oil will come up and it'll hit this line and it'll seal this room up for us. And then duplicants will be able to come down in here, get through, use the oil well, and leave. So the first thing we need to do before we get that is we need to get this primed with some oil in it. So let's put a pump down here at the bottom. And then we'll just run a pipe up here. And a vent. And then what do we have for power here? We have power up here at the top. Let's just run it down. So heavy watt wire. Straight up connected. That's going to pump up crude oil in here. Basically, we just want to seal the liquid lock, and then that way this gas pump can run power out. I think I also want to do the power through a heavy watt line, because I'm not concerned about the looks of it in here. Only time you really need to worry about not using heavy watt wire is if you want to keep the decor up in that area. And I don't really care about it in here. This is going to be an industrial area. So I want to have it so that it is more functional than anything. So I don't want to have to run a power transformer and cool that transformer. I just want the heavy watt wire to go in and power everything. The last thing we need to do to get this set up is we need to set an atmo sensor to control our gas pump, and a hydro sensor to control our liquid pump. And then once this is all built, we'll get all the carbon dioxide, the little bit that's left in here, out, and we'll connect up some water to get it running. Our oil well is done except for the water. We have 2 more wells that are just like this, so I am going to basically copy and paste this over them. So the one is here. So we're going to put it right like this. We're going to have to make some adjustments to it. Oh, I don't think I lined that up correctly. We're going to have to make some adjustments to it because of the ladders being in the way. Let's do this one more time. So what I want to line up is the... Where are we at? The 4 mesh tiles underneath. We'll put it like that. And then we need to put in tiles like that, and that, and that. And then we need to remove the ladders inside. That way we can put in the pump when we're done. But we'll be able to get in like that. Let's put a ladder down on this side and this side, just so we can get all the way around for building purposes. And they'll be able to get down here and get this thing all built. And then we'll copy it again. And we have one over here. Now this one is going to be a little more tricky, so I want to pause it while I'm placing this. So we want it to put it like that. But I don't want to have them build this section yet, or any of the things that are inside here. So I'm going to have them build the outside, but that's just so that we can get it sealed up. And then we will come along after we have sealed it and gotten the carbon dioxide out, and then we'll crack this open, because I don't want to release that natural gas out into the wild. So let's do that. We don't need these ladders, but we do need ladders that go like this and like this. So that should be good. We should be able to get down here and dig out everything here and get everything moving. should be good. A little concerned about, I don't think they're going to be able to get to this part. Let's leave this here open so they can get in here, and then I can dig those 3 tiles. I think that should be good. We'll be able to get in there, get a pump placed, get power to it, and then we can... Actually, we could do it on this side where we actually want the pump. That might be better. Yep, so we'll let that go. We'll get this built, get the other ones built, and then we'll work on getting water running to all 3 of these oil reservoirs. Our second one is done here. It's important to note that the oil that's in here that's over the level that we want is fine. Eventually it'll get back down, but this oil well will continue to operate even underneath the oil, and the gas will just compress to the top. And we have gotten all of our carbon dioxide out of there. So once we're ready to run this, it will fill this up with natural gas and everything will work just fine the way that it is. Our last one is a little more tricky. I'm working on it here. I put blocks in to push out some of the carbon dioxide. I pumped some out using our gas pump over here. And I do not want the natural gas getting out. So I wanted to go in and get the oil here filled up first. So I'm working my way from the bottom and only taking out a couple tiles at a time, because I don't want the oil to drop low enough that that natural gas will make it out through here. But now that we have oil to this level, we'll be fine. So we can remove the rest of this, and the oil will fall, the natural gas will fill the room up. That gas pump doesn't have a vent on it, so we won't be pumping any natural gas out. We're also going to set this to above 1,000 grams for later, and we can remove the blocks up here. So now we can go ahead and put in our mesh tiles underneath the oil reservoir, and we can go to utilities and we can put in our oil well. We do want that to be out of steel. I don't know if I said that when I was building it earlier. And the temp shifts to plate I make out of diamond. Then we need to connect up power. So we're going to come down like this, and we want to put in a pump for this. We're going to disconnect this one a while because we're done with that. And we'll need power to go across like this. And then we can remove this vent, and we'll replace that with our sensor. And then this one's good to go too. And you can see how the natural gas just spreads out to fill up the area. This oil will pump out so that it stays at this level, and the natural gas will just stay in there. And the natural gas can overpressurize, and it won't cause any problems. This will still run just fine. So we'll be fine with natural gas in here. We can actually use this as storage if we're not using the natural gas. Once we get these running, we'll pull the natural gas out and we'll run them to a central place to use them for power. And it'll be just a little excess power. It's not going to give us a whole lot because it only gives us 33.3 grams per second per oil well. If we're running full bore, we'll get 100 grams, which is enough to run, I think, one natural gas generator. Yeah, just a little over one of them. So it's not going to be a huge amount, but hey, extra power, extra water. No reason not to run it. So we're going to set this to be above 500 as well. We don't want to take anything out of here until this has more than 500 grams of oil, kilograms of oil. That way this liquid seal is never broken. Also going to mop up this water, though we're going to have problems with that until I get rid of these steam issues in a little while. So no problems. I'm pumping all this fluid that spilled down in back up into our water tank up here. This we're going to be using pretty soon, so we'll start processing that in just a little bit. But this is now ready. We need a pipe coming out of this. So we're going to go the other side. We did it on this side. We're going to actually run it out this way. I'm going to run an insulated pipe just to do that. And we'll take this pipe off and we'll remove this excess power line. I think that concludes everything in here. We just need to work on the water. So what we're going to do for water, eventually this system is going to be self-powering. Once we get into doing a petroleum boiler, we're going to have it so that it takes water from the excess from our petroleum generators and from our natural gas generators, processes it, feeds it back in to give us more oil, which gets turned into more petroleum, and so forth. But for now, we need water to get started with making oil. and that's going to come from this tank. So what we want to do is right up here, since I have space to do it, I'm going to set up a little system for making oil. So first thing I want to do is I'm going to get rid of some of these ladders here because they're just going to be in my way. So let's deconstruct the ladders. I have our area here for our water filtration to get set up. So I'm going to do a pretty simple setup here. So we're going to do water sieves first. So we'll put one here. I want to put one here as well. We're going to have to reroute this pipe, even though this is a temporary pipe. I'm just going to reroute it real quick. In between the two sieves, we're going to put down a storage, and then we're going to put a sweeper right above them, and we'll connect some power up to it so that we can handle that. And that's going to hold our sand, so that's going to process our polluted water. Underneath, we're going to go with desalinators. So let's put these so that they're kind of conveniently facing each other. They're connected to the power there, and then we can do our plumbing. So we're going to need a pump in here. We're going to pump the fluids out of there. They're going to get split and go into these two lines here. If I do it that way, it'll split there and it'll split there. That's fine. Then the polluted water coming back, or the water coming out of the sieves will go like this, and we'll come down here, we'll split it into these two, and then these two will connect, and they will pump, and we're going to go right back up here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set up some reservoirs in here. Let's just do it with iron for now. These are temporary, so I don't really care what they're made out of. But I do want to have it so that we can store a whole bunch of water just to have it ready to go for our processing. Ladder's going to be kind of a pain to be in the way. Well, let's keep it this way. We'll get rid of this one. We'll put a ladder down the side. That way we have one that goes the whole way. And then we can get rid of this ladder here so that we can put another reservoir there. Then this line is just going to go like this. And then we'll have one that connects all of these. We'll get all that built. So this is going to pump liquids out of here. We have salt water, we have polluted water, and we have water in here. All of that is going to get pumped in. First, it'll go through the sieves. If it's salt water, it'll just pass through. If it's water, it'll just pass through. If it's polluted water, then it will be cleaned using the sand. And then the output will join down here to go through here. If it's water that's already been cleaned or fresh water, it will just pass through the desalinators. And if it's salt water, the desalinators will clean it. And our output will be all clean water. And we can store that in here. And then once we get this built, we'll set up our system for running water down to our oil wells. So in order to keep everything fitting into this one episode, I went ahead and ran the piping that we need to run water. So the issue that I've always had in the past with running water to oil reservoirs is that it will cause the water in the pipes to heat up, and then that water will back up in the inside of our oil reservoir, and it'll sit there and it'll heat up. So this water's coming in, it's 33 degrees. If it comes down here, even with the insulated pipes, when this thing is back pressured, the water won't be being processed, which means that it'll sit here in the pipe and it can slowly heat up over time. And then it'll crack a pipe. I'll get water in here. It'll make steam. It'll cause all kinds of mess. I don't like it. So my solution for that is I limit the water that I'm sending through. So I have a shutoff here so that I can turn the water on and off. And then I have a valve that's set to 1 gram per second, 1,000 grams per second, 1 kilogram per second, which means it's 1/10 of the pipe, which means it has room to expand in the pipe, and it won't overheat, it won't turn to steam, and it will not crack. And what even with doing that, if it gets to the bottom here and then it has nowhere to go, if this cannot accept the water, it will slowly pile up and turn into larger blobs, and then it'll crack. So instead, I loop it back. So then it loops back up, it comes through here, it goes through into this pipe, which goes up to our vent and drops the water back off into our tank up here. So as we watch and see here, you'll see water coming in, the oil well is running, it is just accepting the water. If this gets back pressured, and we're going to set this to high priority because when it is back pressured, I want somebody to come do it. It doesn't matter that it's an urgent task because it doesn't happen often. So, you know, once every couple of cycles, somebody will come relieve the pressure and then we'll be done with it. But so as it's pumping the water in, we're getting crude oil back. So you can see this oil here is slowly climbing up. We'll have to be pumping the oil out. For now, I'm just going to leave it as it is. As it gets up above this line, it'll spill out over the edge. If you wanted to do it in a place where you're going to have a tank right underneath this, like if you had 3 oil wells near to each other, you're just going to have a gravity tank underneath, you could just replace this tile with a mesh tile. It would still keep enough here that it would keep this seal, and so they could go in and out without the natural gas getting out, and it would spill out faster. But as it is, it will go up, and as the pressure goes above this line, it'll spill over the edge, and it'll join our tank of crude oil and petroleum and water, all this stuff down here. So this can run for now without any problems. We'll be producing oil. So let's clean this out. The natural gas will just build up until I get ready to use that natural gas, but that means we're now producing resources. So all we need to do, back up here, is repeat this process and then send it down to the other oil wells. And what I'm going to do, in order to make it as convenient as possible, is I'm going to run a line over here from our water that goes all the way to the end. And our oil well is right up here. So basically, I'm just going to go all the way across. I want to cut off this because we don't want to go there. And then I'll just run it down here, and then the return line will run back. And that way I can just bring the water all the way down here, and I'm only crossing over the hot area in this one little section. I may even run this line. What might be the best is to run this line through the wall, because I really don't want to risk having this pipe in a hot area, and this area is going to be, by design, pretty hot. So let's run it like this, and we'll come back up like this. We'll come out. I'm going to actually run a line like this, and we'll connect it here. We'll have to open this wall up to get inside to make that secondary pipe, but then our return line can come all the way down like so, and it will connect onto our vent line like that. So they can build all that piping. Let's disconnect this line that I crossed over and actually get rid of this because we're not using it anymore. At least until here. Actually, this can be going too. There we go. Okay. So then, well, like I said, we'll have to crack into this wall to put that pipe in, but we'll be doing the same thing. We'll run one kilogram per second of water down here. This can produce oil. This one, when it backs up, the oil is going to build up over here. So I actually set up a vent here, so this will run and drop it off into here because I do want it running. I'll do the same thing for this one, and we'll get the oil being produced so that we can start back stockpiling a large amount of oil. In the future, the next episode, I'm going to work on building the carbon district area here that's going to be hot, which means moving all our power production in. We'll put in some natural gas generators so we can start utilizing the natural gas that we'll be building up. And we'll work on getting a petroleum boiler as well. But I'm trying to keep the episodes as concise as I can and only focusing on one thing at a time so that they are small things that are easier for newer players to digest. So this episode is just all about the oil. Next episode, we'll work on natural gas and setting that up so that we have a way to utilize that in a pretty good way that it's going to be a renewable power source for us. So I hope you enjoyed watching. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.